So let's use this program to get started on our programming assignment 6, which is our dice game Pig. So I've got our flowchart over here, and then we've got, let me manage this one window, and then we've got main over here. So let's see if we can capture the structure of this program in our main. And we're going to go back and do the class and any functions and things like that later. So start, and then we're going to explain the rules. Rules are a detail. So I'm just going to print out explain rules. You'd have to go back and later reset that. And then we're going to get a goal. So instead of always having to play to 100, so let's do an integer variable goal. And then for now, let's just set goal equal to 20. We need to replace this later. But that's a detail, so we can worry about that later. We need to get the name of a player. That sounds like that's going to be a string. So we'll go up here and we'll do include string. Let's add a string. Let's call it player name. And then we need to do that input output, but that's a detail. So let's just go ahead and do player name equals default for right now. And then we'll go back and fix it. Now we initialize the player to set up the scorecard. Okay, so we need a player score for right now. So let's do P score, and let's set that equal to 0. And let's just explicitly set P score equal to 0 again down here. And later we'll handle this in our player class, but for right now we're just going to kind of rough it out in main. And then we need a dice, so one die. So we're going to call this roll value. And I'm just going to set it equal to a default value. So we'll set it equal to 4, and then we can go back and change it and set it equal to 1 to test that later. And then ultimately we'll replace that with our dice class. Okay, so now we get down into some kind of a loop. So we've got a do loop, and then the while sits down here. So we're going to do our do our open close parentheses, and then we'll build our while. Let's see what sits in our while. So our while is when no one wins. Okay, so it sounds like we need to have some Boolean variables for win. So we'll call this pwin, and we'll set it equal to 0. And that'll be the player win. Why don't we do an underscore there just to keep it consistent. And then we'll do C for computer win, and we'll set that equal to 0. So now if both of those are false, but we want the loop to continue, then we'd do while pwin, we'd have to stick a not in front of it. So if pwin is false, we just knotted it, so now it's true. We'd also want the not of cwin to be anded together. So the ampersand is the and, so this would be the player does not win, also the computer does not win. As long as that's still true, then that do loop will keep going. let's just comment this. This is our outer do loop until someone wins. And then we'll comment down here the same comment. And so now let's build it in. So we've got a temporary total. So we're going to set that equal to 0. Then we're going to roll the dice. So we're not going to really roll the dice because that's a detail that we're going to fix later. So we're just going to set the roll value equal to 4 again. And then we'll do replace later with roll of dice. We want to print the roll value. That would kind of be important to check to make sure that everything's working. So let's go ahead and put that in here. So we'll print out player name. I'll move this window over just a little. Okay, so we've got a fair amount of code in here. Let's just run it and make sure that it's running. Okay, so it looks like I'm missing an STD there. Okay, great. Now we're in a loop. We've got no way to get out of the loop, so it's just an endless loop, but everything looks like it's working. Okay, let's keep going. So we rolled something. We printed the roll value. Did we roll greater than 1? Let's build both of these cases because we have a true and then an else case. And then just so we don't forget what we're doing here with the else case, we're going to do lose turn. And then with the true case, let's go ahead and continue building this out. So add the rolled attempt total. And then we want to see if the player wants to roll again. I just did an ENDL there to finish that off. And then we need to read in that choice. So let's call this variable choice. Why don't we just keep it a single character? That's probably the most straightforward. So we'll do char choice. We just write a character into choice. So do you want to roll again? We'll do YRN. Then we have another while loop that's going to go back up here and roll. But we don't really want the while loop in the if, so that's a little bit of a problem with our flowchart. So let's build this lose turn part and let's see if we can kind of resolve this. So when we do a lose turn, you know what would fix this is if we had a player's turn that we could just use that for a while loop. So why don't we create another boolean? So you can see we're having to change our flowchart a little bit as we go. So we'll do pturn And then when it becomes the player's turn, we'll set pturn equal to 1 or true. So when we're going to lose our turn, then we're going to set our temp total to 0, and then we're going to lose that turn, so this would be pturn equals 0. Now we can kind of process what's going on here with our if statement. If we want to roll again, we could kind of separate that into two different things. So we can do an if choice. Remember, we're doing the double equals because it's an equivalency test, is equal to yes. Else no, then we want a bank. So if it's yes, then we do pturn equals 1, just to make for sure that pturn is set to 1. It should already be set to 1, so there shouldn't be a need to change that. But if we're done, then we need to lose our turn, so we're going to set pturn equal to 0. But we also need to bank the score, so we've got p score here, which would be our banked value. So we'll add that to the bank. And then we need to go ahead and zero out temp total again here. So now we've got kind of two different ways that we could fall through here. One is that if you say no, you want a bank, then you could lose your turn that way. The other way is you could roll a 1 and then you could lose your turn. So now we're kind of all set. So now we can finish off this do loop that we separated into a do loop and an if statement. So we're going to roll again right here. So we're going to put our do right here. So this would be the player's turn. This is the end of the player's turn, so this is where we're going to mark the end of the player's turn. Whoops. And we can do that with while pturn. I'm going to go back and just indent. Yeah, and those are same level. Okay, so we got all this indented. So let's try and run it and see if we have any errors in here. So I rolled a 4. Do I want to roll again? Yes. And then no. Okay, and then it's going to bring us right back up to our turn because we don't have the computer's turn in there yet. Okay, so this looks good. Now at the end of pturn, we probably want to check and see if we won. And that's not really in our computer's turn here. But let's go ahead and place it in here. So we call this goal. So we'll say if P1, I got this in the wrong spot. So we just possibly updated our score, and so then if our score is greater than or equal to the goal, then we'll set P1 equal to 1. We could even put this inside of an else, an if else. And then we can build the computer's turn in the else, and then that way if the computer won't be able to play once the player has already won. Okay, so now let's take a look and see what we can kind of pull down from the computer. The computer can use the same temp total that we used up here. Let's see what else, what other code we could go ahead and reuse. We'll use the same role, and we'll use the same printout of the role. We'll just change this to be computer. Rolled, and we'll do roll value. But this part down here is going to be a little bit simpler. So if the roll value is less than 1, we still lose our turn. But if roll value is greater than 1, so if our roll value is greater than 1, let's see what stuff we can pull through. So it's really this banking part that we'd want to pull through for the computer. We don't need to look at the turn because the computer only gets the one turn in our version of the program. And so this would now become C score, C for computer, C score plus temp total. Okay, let's see if our program's still running. And looks like I didn't declare C score, so let's declare that up here. Okay, so it looks like it's working. Now, once you get the structure where it looks like it's going, you want to go back and add some more prints just so you can kind of see where you're at. So let's start out. When we roll the 1 and we're losing our turn, we really want to probably go in here and print that out. Let's see where else it might be nice to have some printouts. So if we have a roll value of greater than 1, we just incremented the temp total. It'd be nice if we could just go ahead and print that out as well. Whoops. And then you probably also want to print out the banked total. And then it's going to ask you to roll again. And then if your choice is 1, probably in here, just to help you to make sure that the flow is working, print out you selected to roll again. And then continue to kind of add statements so that you can see what your program's doing when you run it. Let's run it again and see if it's a little more clear. Bank total is 0, so yes, we want to roll again. Our bank total is 0, but our temp total is 8. So now we can see that temporary total is working, so we'll do that. You can see that bank total is now updated. So continue to add, once you get your control structure working, continue to add these kind of statements to print things out. So that'll add a little bit more detail as you go, and then continue to go back and add comments. We'll talk later about how to add a class that'll manage the dice roll, and then we'll also talk later about how to incorporate all of the names and scores and things like that into a player class. And the good thing about both of those classes is they'll allow you to start thinking about how to generalize so that you could use the dice class in any kind of dice game, and you could use the player class in a lot of different types of dice or card games. So thanks for watching.